It's interesting. Number one, it's a college campus, and I actually talked to law enforcement there on the ground. And what one of the cops, he was an Orem PD guy, he said, I was asking him about, what was going on during the investigation right after Charlie Kirk was murdered. So the FBI, the local Utah authorities, and all the investigative different agencies involved, they had that entire campus locked down for 3 days. So Charlie was killed on the 10th. We had the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th that they were processing that. And what he relayed to me, and I don't know if this was hyperbole, but he said there was hundreds of people here 24/7. That's
what I was told as well.
Yeah. So they had a full 3 days to process this crime scene, gather evidence, and everything that they're supposed to do. And then they turn the area back over to UVU, which again is an active campus and things like that. And I do know, I was told there on the ground that they had torn up a bunch of the sod there and everything else. And then on Sunday the 14th, UVU did have people come in and put paver stones in that area. And I don't know why. I reject the idea that they contaminated a crime scene. I actually had Andrea Burkhart, who is a criminal defense attorney. I asked her about that. She said, it's a little odd, but it's not inexplicable. I mean, it's
not
no
the
longer,
FBI also.
Yeah.
That's actually the important point. Like, I think we can sit here and be like, well, that was weird that UVU did that so quickly and without communication. Like, I have no problem acknowledging that they didn't really handle PR very well, or that they were trying to, restore life on campus back to normalcy without like addressing what had happened on their campus. Like, that was obvious. They mishandled that. I think we all probably agree on that, no matter what our opinions are on the 30-06 round. It was my understanding that the FBI was never really point on this investigation anyway. When you were describing the scene being locked down, within an hour of Charlie being shot, a campus police officer had cordoned off the roof, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not. Within the hour, the entire campus was locked down so that the courtyard, which is like the amphitheater where the event was happening, in addition to the roof, so that there was no unofficial access, that lockdown remained in place for 3 days. And when you say law enforcement process, this was like Utah Department of Public Safety, Utah Police, Orem Police, ATF, in addition to FBI. It wasn't just like, Kash Patel descended on the scene and, single-handedly with a little magnifying glass went around looking for fingerprints. This was a whole bunch of, in fact, not to be telling tales here, there were some disgruntled individuals as part of these agencies when Kash Patel did come in the next day and kind of claimed credit for all the investigative work on behalf of the FBI. Some people in these other agencies, and kudos to them for being professional enough not to say anything publicly, were like, hey, that wasn't you, that was us that did that. You just took credit for everything we did on the ground. The FBI was not like point on this.
Yeah. And I do think it's, I don't know if that's what I would do if I was in charge of the administration at the school. But, I can also see from their perspective, like, hey, we got to open this back up. And number one, the grass is torn up. We got to do something to fix that. If they wanted to put down pavers and, I don't know, change the scene a little bit to be less traumatic for students that were there that had to relive that, I can understand it. I don't know that that's what I would do, but what we can definitively say is they didn't contaminate a crime scene because it was no longer a crime scene. I mean, that's the point.
It's also my understanding that that's a very typical amount of time. Like, when we're talking about processing a crime scene, we're talking about photos, we're talking about videos, we're talking about 3D renderings, we're talking about samples taken from the soil where Charlie was killed, we're talking about DNA samples. I think there were palm prints recovered on the rooftop, partial footprints on the rooftop too, a screwdriver. All of these things were meticulously documented. And it's my understanding that this is pretty standard protocol for a homicide scene, that there wouldn't have been a reason for that to be closed down for like weeks on end or months, that after a certain amount of days, I mean, these people that go in to forensically document this, they know what they need to document and how. They're not just like kind of looking around for clues.
Yeah. And what are they supposed to do? Leave it open so that people can walk around there with metal detectors and try to find, some fragments of bullets or whatever else is going on.
Yeah.
Like, I think the expectations are a little unreal when it comes to that. I don't know, and that really wasn't even the crime scene. The crime scene was on top of the roof. That's where the crime was being committed. That's where the forensic data that needed to be discovered. And all along, from the exfiltration point of that. So
Yeah.
It's people.
Details matter in this scenario. I mean, I can understand why people would be upset if you thought that FBI was contaminating a crime scene or covering up, paving over a crime scene. You should be upset if the FBI is doing that. That would be wrong. It would be immoral. It would be corrupt. Believe me, no one trusts the FBI less than me. No one has less faith in the FBI than me. And I say that with no joy. I'm just objectively analyzing what they've done in my adult lifetime. But in this case, details matter. UVU is who I would criticize, honestly, if you want to criticize someone for the pavers. They did, to be fair, have to clean up the grass. I mean, I know this is graphic. It's painful still and probably always will be to talk about, but blood is a biohazard. There was a lot of blood on that grass. They had to remove that sod, and they decided to put up a memorial so that, I mean, there were also imprints reportedly from, the scene of what happened after Charlie was shot, and they didn't want it to become some kind of morbid, gruesome tourist spot. They were trying, I suppose, to make it some kind of memorial. And yes, in a sense, they were trying to whitewash over, and this was the university. This was after it was not an active crime scene. They were trying to whitewash over what had happened so that it wouldn't be associated with their campus, which, in my opinion, was unwise. They should have done this in a much more delicate and transparent way. But again, criticize UVU all you want. I think they deserve a lot of criticism for what happened. But that's a very different allegation than saying that the FBI paved over a crime scene. And as I said, I think the details matter. That's a very important distinction.
Well, I think you're right. And that's what's a little bit crazy to me is when you start having these discussions with people that are very critical of this and seem very vested in this entire thing. And then, just like you talked about, once you start posting facts about it and going over the evidence, like they don't even realize a lot of those things. So, they've been fed very specific information. A lot of that information has been omitted. A lot of information is being omitted. And people are very prone to kind of post what is salacious, and they're pushing a certain narrative, and that is a conspiracy narrative, whichever one of 50 you want to latch yourself onto. And
in a sense, from an emotional standpoint, I understand it. We've all been burned by deep state and real conspiracies, especially within the last 5 years, the last 10 years. So I get that, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be discerning. By the way, I think what you said is interesting. I got a comment last night from this user on X named Jeff after I posted the FBI didn't contaminate the scene. This is actually what happened. And I posted just the chronology of what happened when it was locked down, what the different agencies did, and then how it was released and what UVU did. And I just posted all of that. And someone asked me, how did you get this information? Was it given to you by a source? And I was like, no, this is all publicly available information. Look at the original reports, especially by local news in Utah. But the surprise that I was able to detail this chronology, what they acted like they hadn't ever heard this information before because, well, I said maybe you should ask why the voices propagating the false narrative that the FBI paved over the crime scene haven't ever told you the actual facts about the investigation. Because when you know the actual facts, well, it changes the whole thing. That's why actually the 30-06 conversation is important, because the conspiracy that this was some foreign country, some assassin from, I don't know, Israel or France or wherever, it changes on every given day, I think. But the idea that would be the thing, or that would be the conspiracy, hinges on a belief that it wasn't Tyler Robinson that fired that bullet, that it was someone else, and that the lack of an exit wound is proof that Tyler Robinson didn't fire that bullet. So it may seem like this, like, exactly. It may seem like, okay, wow, you're doing a whole episode on around the details of which law enforcement hasn't even released. So how do we know? But that's actually like the crux, the foundational skepticism of the fact that that round sometimes doesn't cause an exit wound is what allows, it's kind of like the entrance, the gateway drug into the larger conspiracy. So that's why I think it's important. Same with the FBI stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to write off all the other hard evidence that is really, at this point, almost indisputable. One of the things that, you brought up, I'm with you. Like, I don't trust the government. I don't trust the FBI. And that's one of the reasons that I went to UVU. I thought it was really important to get on the ground and see for myself what was possible and what wasn't. And one of the things that really struck me was the fact that that whole courtyard was so much smaller than it actually looks on television. And, when we had, at the time, I was bringing on all kinds of people. I was completely open to all these theories. And I had people on our podcast, like, hey, this guy thought there was a shooter in a different location, or this guy thought there was an exploding microphone. So I want to go there and figure this out, and was completely open to all of this. But once you get there on the ground, one of the things that was shocking to me was how easy the roof was to access. And that's something that people still don't know. It's literally the end of a walkway that connects different buildings. And you literally just step over the railing and you can walk out to the position where Tyler Crooks was. There's still people that don't know that. They still people that believe that he had to climb up to the roof, or that you had to have some sort of special key card or a locked door to get through the roof. It's very atypical and strange that the way that is laid out. And, until you see those things and those things. And what's shocking to me too is how many of these different podcasters that are pushing these narratives have failed to even show their viewers that. I mean, I think it's dishonest, to say the least.
Yeah, it's caused a really weird moment on the right. There's a lot of fracture, and it's not healthy fracture. It's I don't like to see it. I mean, one of the reasons, and not to wax philosophical here, but one of the reasons that right-wing media became such a force to be reckoned with, and I'm really proud of this because I was part of this over the last 10 or 15 years, is not because when we entered the scene that we had the technology to compete with CNN, or that we were as well-sourced as the Washington Post, or that we were as experienced as anchors who'd been on ABC for 30 years. What we had to offer is we offered the truth. We said, we're not going to manipulate you. We're not going to try to brainwash you. We're not going to cherry pick information to try to lead you to a certain conclusion. We are just going to present you the truth that no one else will tell you, because they have an agenda and we don't. And we're going to be transparent about our own politics so that you can factor our bias into the way that we phrase our stories. And I found that to be, that was it. That's our currency, the trust of the people, telling the truth. And the second that you stop doing that, the second that you become manipulative, the second that you start acting as propaganda, the second that you are dishonest, it's not just the individual that's engaging. It's not just one podcast host. It's like, oh, she ruined her credibility because who's going to believe her after this? It actually tarnishes the entire right-wing media, which would be a shame, because if we become so tarnished, our credibility, because truth is discarded, what's going to happen is people are going to turn back to the mainstream media, and we're going to be right back where we were 15 years ago. And honestly, that would break my heart.
And I don't think I think that's intentional. I think that is part of the disinformation operation that's taking place. And I think it is well organized. And I think there are multiple different entities that are exploiting Charlie Kirk's death to make all those things happen. We see what's happened just from a political standpoint. It's been extremely damaging. And when you look at the impact that Charlie Kirk had on, a revival of conservatism, especially amongst youth, like a lot of that has been
college-age young men.
A lot of that has been undone. And then on top of that, what the left is going to be able to say 6 months from now, 2 months from now, a year from now is like, okay, you mean the same people that were pushing all these conspiracies? And unfortunately, there are people that are wittingly and unwittingly participating in some of this stuff. And it's damaging to everything. Look, at the end of the day, the truth is the soul of this nation. And that's what's under attack. And
that's right.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's lots of agendas going on political. I think there's foreign adversaries taking advantage of this, amongst others. And I think we need to wake up and make sure that we start holding the people that we listen to accountable. Like, why have some of these people not gone there? Why has some of these people not shown the entire truth? Like,
I think our body language says it all right now, right? It's demoralizing because it's so damaging to our cause. And we seek justice for our friend who was brutally murdered. And this threatens, it could taint the jury, because they could be informed by conspiracy theories and not by facts. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and complain about it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I have always done for the past 10 years, which is present the truth that is not told to you. In this case, as sad as it might be, this truth might not be told to you by even some on the right wing. It's not just the mainstream media.